Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're taking off into a really fascinating area, remotely piloted aircraft, RPAs.
That's right.
These cover everything from, say, surveillance drones you might see on the news, right through to potential delivery UAVs, things that could really change how we get stuff.
Absolutely. They're making waves.
Definitely, they're impacting civil aviation, defense, all sorts of industries. So our mission today is really to give you a clear shortcut, a good handle on how these things are being certified and regulated right here in the UK.
And guiding us through this complex landscape is Dr. James Alden. Dr. Alden's an aerospace policy expert, former advisor to the Civil Aviation Authority. It's fantastic to have your expertise today.
It really is.
And we should also give a big thank you to Westferry Times. Thank you for watching Westferry Times. Their source material really is the fuel for this deep dive.
Absolutely vital. So, James, what we're really trying to get our heads around is, where things stand now with RPA certification in the UK. How does that compare internationally? What are the sort of sticking points, the challenges, and what's the future looking like?
That's the goal.
By the end, you, listening, should have a really solid grasp of this. It's pretty cutting-edge stuff.
It is indeed.
Okay, so to kick things off then, under UK regulations, what exactly is a remotely piloted aircraft? How do they define it?
Right. That's the crucial starting point. Basically, within the CAA framework, the Civil Aviation Authority's framework, it's an aircraft flown without a pilot on board.
Okay.
Someone on the ground is controlling it remotely. Now, that control, it can be real-time, direct inputs.
Like flying a model plane, almost.
Sort of, yes,
Yeah.
but often much more sophisticated. Or it can be pre-programmed, following a set flight path using GPS, for instance. Think of like setting a route for a robot vacuum, but up in the sky.
Gotcha.
And what's interesting is the distinction from, say, fully autonomous systems. They have more capacity for making their own decisions.
Yeah.
And the variety is huge. From small, consumer drones for hobbyists, right up to these big, complex UAVs the military uses.
And where are we actually seeing these used most visibly in the UK right now? It feels like they're popping up more and more.
Oh, you're spot on. The applications are, well, incredibly diverse and growing fast.
Like what?
We're seeing them increasingly in farming, agriculture, for things like mapping fields, checking crop health, logistics, definitely lots of trials for package delivery.
Right. The delivery drones.
Exactly. Also infrastructure inspection, huge area, checking power lines, bridges, wind turbines, much more efficient.
Saves sending people up, I suppose.
Precisely. Then there's emergency response, search and rescue, fire monitoring. That aerial view is invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, defense and security applications too.
Yeah.
Things like the Amazon delivery tests or Royal Mail trying them out for remote islands. That really brings it into the mainstream.
Okay, so with all these uses, who's actually in charge of setting the rules? Who handles the certification and regulation side here in the UK?
Well, the main player, as we mentioned, is the Civil Aviation Authority.
Right.
The CAA.
Right.
They're the central body. They set the standards, the processes for certifying and regulating RPAs.
But are they the only ones involved?
Not entirely, no.
Huh.
It connects to the wider government picture. The Ministry of Defense, for example, obviously has a big interest, especially with the larger military RPAs.
Naturally.
The Department for Transport is involved in sort of the bigger picture of integrating them into the national airspace.
Okay.
And even Ofcom has a role, mainly with the radio frequencies they use for control, especially for maybe more sensitive or specialized operations.
Right, so it's a bit of a team effort, regulation-wise?
You could say that, yes. Shared responsibility.
So how does getting one of these RPAs certified actually compare to, say, certifying a normal passenger plane, a traditional manned aircraft? I imagine it's quite different. What are the hoops?
Oh, indeed there are. And this is where it gets really interesting and complex.
How so?
Well, certifying manned aircraft, we've been doing that for decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are established international standards, very well-defined procedures.
Mm-hmm. Tried and tested.
Exactly. RPAs, though, they throw up entirely new questions for regulators.
Yeah.
Like, what is a pilot when they're not physically in the aircraft?
Good point.
How do you guarantee the same level of safety without a human in the cockpit reacting instantly to, say, an engine failure or bad weather?
Yeah, that's a huge one.
So the CAA has to validate a whole new set of systems. The data links, that connection between the ground and the aircraft, have to be absolutely solid.
Crucial.
Then the onboard fail-safe systems, what happens if that link is lost, the software running it all, and increasingly important, this detect and avoid technology.
Ah, so they can see other planes.
Exactly. Using things like radar, LiDAR, cameras,
Yeah.
systems, so they can operate safely around other air traffic.
Mm.
It's a much more uh, intricate and, frankly, fast-moving regulatory puzzle.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit then. How does UK's way of doing this stack up against what's happening elsewhere, say the US or the EU? Are we just copying them or forging our own path?
That's a really good question. The U.S., through the FAA, they have quite a rigorous um, type certification process,
Mm.
especially under their Part 107 rules for commercial drones.
Type certification that's approving the specific drone model itself?
Yes, exactly. Ensuring the design meets tough safety standards before it can operate commercially in certain ways.
Okay. And Europe?
The EU, through EASA, that's the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, they've gone for a slightly different approach,
Okay.
a risk-based system.
They're spaced.
Yeah, they divide operations into categories: open, specific, and certified. The regulations get tougher as the assessed risk goes up.
So simpler flights, simpler rules.
In essence, yes, it allows for more proportionate regulation. You focus the really intense scrutiny on the highest risk stuff, potentially letting low-risk innovation happen more easily.
And the UK, post-Brexit, where do we fit?
Well, the UK seems to be developing a kind of hybrid system. The CAA is certainly looking at and aligning with some European principles.
Right.
But significantly, the UK is also investing quite heavily in its own national testing and evaluation sites. Places like the Snowdonia Aerospace Centre, ATLAs in West Wales.
Ah, building our own capability.
Precisely. That demonstrates a real commitment to developing domestic expertise.
And do you see that as a good strategy for the UK? Does it give us an edge?
I think it absolutely could, yes. Longer term, it might give the UK more flexibility, the chance to perhaps specialize and become a leader in specific niches of the RPA world.
Like what sort of niches?
A really important one is beyond visual line of sight operations, BVLOS.
Right, where the pilot can't physically see the drone.
Exactly. That's
Good.
absolutely
Yeah.
crucial for unlocking large-scale commercial uses. Think of long-distance deliveries, mapping huge areas, inspecting miles of pipeline.
Because you can't do that if you have to keep it in sight.
Precisely. It's the key to really widespread commercial rollout.
Yeah.
By building our own expertise in test facilities for things like BVLOS, the UK could genuinely be at the forefront.
Okay, so despite that potential, what are the biggest hurdles? What's stopping these RPA systems from being certified and used more widely right now? What are the main roadblocks?
There are several key ones. Number one, probably safety assurance.
Right.
Just proving convincingly to regulators and the public that an aircraft without a pilot can handle emergencies safely. That's a massive technical and regulatory challenge.
I can imagine.
Secondly, integration into existing airspace. Our skies are already busy, mostly with manned aircraft. Safely fitting unmanned aircraft into that mix is complex, needs careful coordination.
Air traffic control for drones, essentially.
Something like that, yes, but
Yeah.
much more automated. Thirdly, cybersecurity. Absolutely critical.
Protecting the control link.
Yes, making sure those command and control links can't be hacked or jammed.
Yeah.
That's non-negotiable. And a fourth one, sometimes overlooked, is public perception. Concerns about privacy, noise, potential misuse, especially around surveillance. Those need to be addressed head on.
And are any of those actually causing delays right now? Are companies stuck waiting?
Very much so. You have quite a few companies with really capable aircraft, great ideas for operations.
Ready to go, basically.
Almost.
Hmm.
But they're hitting roadblocks, get full certification, because some of the key enabling tech, especially those robust detect and avoid systems we mentioned,
Yeah.
they're still going through really tough validation. They haven't quite met the super high bar set by the regulators yet.
Okay.
And without that proven certified detect and avoid capability, you really can't have widespread legal operation of RPAs mixing freely with manned aircraft. That's a major bottleneck.
Let's bring in the military angle. How does their use of RPAs affect the civilian side? Is there much crossover or knowledge sharing?
Oh, there's a very significant influence and quite a lot of crossover, actually. Yes. The Ministry of Defense, the MOOD, already operates some highly sophisticated systems. The Protector RG MK1 is a prime example. It's basically a certified version of the MQ-9B Sky Guardian.
Certified for what?
That's the key thing. It's the first military UAV certified for routine operation in civilian airspace.
Wow, okay. That's big.
It sets a huge precedent.
Yeah.
It demonstrates to the CAA and others that these high standards of safety and reliability can be met, even for large, complex systems.
So the tech is transferable.
Definitely. You see a lot of development in dual-use technologies.
Hmm.
Defense contractors are increasingly looking at how tech developed for military drones could be adapted for commercial stuff, logistics, surveillance, infrastructure monitoring.
So in some ways, the military is kind of ahead of the curve here.
In certain aspects, yes,
Hmm.
particularly things like the level of autonomy they might use or
Yeah.
the resilience built into their systems. But it's important to remember, military operations often happen in controlled airspace, maybe less densely populated areas.
Hmm.
Civil certification has to deal with crowded skies, dynamic situations, and a whole raft of different legal and public considerations. It's a different ballgame.
Got it. So looking ahead then, what's the next phase? What developments can we expect in RPA certification over the next few years?
Well, I think we'll likely see a continued move towards more dynamic, risk-based certification,
Hmm.
tailoring the scrutiny level to the specific flight and its risks.
More nuanced.
Exactly. And the development and rollout of a national use-based architecture. That will be massive.
U-Space. What's that?
Think of it as an automated air traffic management system specifically for drones, essential for handling lots more RPA traffic safely.
Okay, makes sense.
We'll probably also see more automation creeping into the certification process itself, using things like digital twins, advanced simulations to maybe speed up testing and validation.
Using tech to certify tech.
Precisely. And there's definitely momentum towards certifying more advanced concepts, like drone swarms working together, or fully autonomous cargo drones that need very little human oversight.
That sounds quite futuristic.
It's closer than you might think.
And if the UK does manage to navigate all these certification hurdles successfully, what's the potential economic prize? You hear big numbers thrown around.
The potential is genuinely substantial, yes. Current forecasts suggest the UK drone economy could be worth upwards of $45 billion by 2030.
45 billion?
It's a
Right.
significant figure. And certification is really the key that unlocks that potential growth.
How so?
Well, whoever develops robust, safe, efficient certification processes first, they have a huge advantage, not just for their own domestic market, but globally.
Capturing the global market too.
Potentially, yes. Influencing international standards, selling the technology, the support services, it's a major opportunity.
And which industries stand to gain the most from this if certification allows RPAs to really take off?
Oh, definitely logistics faster, maybe greener deliveries, agriculture, precision farming becoming more widespread, infrastructure cheaper, safer monitoring and maintenance. Those are probably the big three initially.
Okay, James, final question then. Based on everything we've discussed, all the potential, all the challenges, is the UK actually on track to become a leader in RPA certification?
The potential is definitely there, no question.
Of the ingredients.
We do. A strong talent base in aerospace and tech, access to good testing facilities, those ranges we talked about.
There's always a but.
There usually is.
Yeah.
Realizing that leadership potential, it really hinges on a few key things.
Such as?
Firstly, those certification policies we need, they have to be well-defined, properly resourced, and effectively implemented. That takes commitment.
Okay.
Secondly, collaboration. Strong, consistent teamwork between the industry innovators, the regulators like the CAA, and the government. That's essential.
Everyone pulling together.
Exactly. And finally, public trust. Fostering public acceptance, addressing concerns, engaging people. That's vital for these technologies to be successfully integrated into everyday life.
Right.
If those elements align, then yes, the UK absolutely has the opportunity to set a global benchmark here.
Dr. Alden, thank you so much. That was incredibly insightful, really shedding light on the complexities, but also the exciting future of RPA certification here in the UK.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating and vital area to watch.
And that brings us towards the end of this deep dive. For me, I guess a key takeaway is just how fast this field is moving.
It really is.
The UK does seem to have the right pieces, doesn't it? The talent, the tech, those test ranges, the potential for leadership is there.
It's agreed.
But like you said, it's not a done deal. Success really hangs on that continued investment, making sure everyone collaborates effectively, and crucially, keeping the public on board.
Well put.
Now, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. We heard that 45 billion projection for the UK drone economy by 2030. Thinking beyond just the money, what wider impacts ethical questions, societal shifts might we see from having certified RPAs and maybe increasingly autonomous systems become commonplace? Not just in our skies, but woven into other parts of our lives too. Definitely something to ponder as this technology keeps racing ahead. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank